Welcome to the Red Couch, Nouran Zarroug. Now tell me, please, that I pronounced this correctly.
It was perfect. Thank you.
So all the Arabic lessons have paid off.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know you did Arabic.
Then I probably never told you that at my wedding I said the tree is in the house. I got some preposition. I was so proud of my Arabic, and then everybody was like, whatever she said. But the people who got it, they were like, totally. The tree is in the house.
Do you still remember how to say it?
Well, I said Ashajara fi al-Bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there was some it was a preparation issue. But anyway, it's a long time. The wedding is a long time. Uh, so now you know something funny about me too that I have not shared on public media yet, but now it's your turn to share a fun fact.
Well, actually, yeah, I think it relates to that. I think a fun fact is I'm a third culture kid, which I think beautifully translates into why I'm in the industry I am. But I was the very typical kind of expat kid that moved around. My parents moved around a lot, and I spent most of my kind of childhood and schooling in international schools, in expat compounds, learning different languages, feeling confused and alien sometimes. And I realize now what a privilege that truly was. Something that felt very frustrating and scary and annoying as a child.
Mm.
Making friendships, then leaving, then building friendships again, turned out to be one of the greatest privileges of my life, and I think has really shaped the direction of my career today. So it's something I'm very, very proud of, and has really supported me, not just in my work, but my passions for all things diversity, and people from different places.
So we have something in common already. I think it's the early expatriation experience
Yeah.
that makes us land in global mobility at some stage. I noticed that with a lot of the people I'm interviewing. Yeah, so either they're third culture kids
Yeah.
themselves, or they have moved, like they have moved when they were children, or have been moved when they were children. Or they were always fascinated by traveling and meeting people from other cultures, learning other languages. And that drew them initially into the topic. So, what do you think is your why? Why do you do what you do?
I think a lot of it relates to that early background, and having those experiences. I think my deepest passions, I always say, are people and places. And this sector and this industry, I think, is a perfect advocate and allows me to build very deep, meaningful, long-term relationships with people from very diverse backgrounds from all over the world. You and I get to connect. We're sitting in two very different cities, but we have these beautiful shared experiences. And that is deeply satisfying.
Mm.
And it's a challenging industry. It's a complex industry. It's definitely not 9 to 5,
Yeah.
Monday to Friday, as most of us know. But I think being able to develop those relationships and those special moments of connecting with people halfway across the world, some you've never met in person before, I think is really, really special. And being able to spread that message far and wide with an industry that is very much built on supporting people, helping people, but really it's about allowing people and professionals to get an experience of another nationality, of another country, of another culture, potentially of another language as well. Really is a wonderful thing and something to be grateful for.
That's so beautiful. Almost
Thank
crying. Nuran, you also started with global mobility managing roles in companies, worked on policies you're the by IB advocate now. I also saw that in your bio you were working for the Worldwide ERC in Europe, and now you have a partnership development role at Localize. And I'm very keen to understand a bit more about, like your day to day, what you do, and also, how you got from where you started in the field to where you are today. Because, I mean, you're not a dinosaur like me, but you also have like a significant work experience already. So, how did you get from being the TCK child moving to the UK to where you are today?
Well, firstly, you're certainly not a dinosaur, but and yeah, I definitely feel I've had many, many, many years in the industry. I actually started, my background's hospitality, so I
Uh-huh.
was very being travel, and I actually spent most of my growing up in the Middle East. And hospitality and hotels in the Middle East just blew my mind. I would spend weekends walking around five-star hotels in Oman and Dubai and Saudi Arabia, just thinking, this is the most spectacular thing ever. So I fell into hospitality. And then I was working for a temp housing service department provider, initially in Liverpool. And then I got a promotion and was asked to relocate to London to work for the same service department provider. Sadly, they don't exist anymore.
Ah, yeah.
And my first experience, I was sent to an FEM conference
Yeah.
probably 15 years ago,
Uh-huh.
a Forum for Expatriate Management conference in London. And the keynote speaker, one of the keynote speakers was a guy who specialized in cultural training. He had his own business and he was talking about cultural training and third culture kids. And genuinely, I was sitting at the front of this talk, having no idea what FEM was, what this conference was, why my boss had sent me to this, having a light bulb, like a real life light bulb moment. And this man who was a New Yorker was just talking about all the kind of pros and cons about third culture kids, what they bring to the world in their older years, and the importance of cultural training and how working with different cultures. And it was in that moment I felt validated, I felt authenticated from a very intelligent white middle class man standing on a stage who was describing my very own personal experiences. And then I kind of spent the rest of the FEM on this cloud like high, thinking, I think this industry might be for me. We're all kind of from quirky backgrounds with mixed up
It's like this,
experiences.
I found my people moment, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
honestly, it really was. I was like, oh, I get it. And I can talk about this because I've done it. And when you talk about the importance of cultural training, which as we know it when budgets are tight, I'm the advocate for why it's so important because I've done the thing my parents had to go through very difficult experiences when they kept moving. And then that's when I decided I was going to kind of really double down and focus on all things global mobility. And then it kind of progressed. And then I became key account director at the temp housing provider, looking after all the RMCs who are mandated to us as a service department provider. And then I was able to kind of travel the world looking after these RMCs. And then joined an RMC after that, which was kind of the natural progression to get experience understanding the nuts and bolts, like the end-to-end journey. And then yeah, I got approached by Worldwide ERC, which to this day was just a huge honor. And they said that they were looking for it was a new role to head up the EMEA region for Worldwide ERC, manage all of their relationships in this region and create new experiences, events, content, and sponsorship opportunities that was specific and unique to the nuances of Europe. As you know, when you're headquartered in the US, there are sometimes some challenges fully understanding all the intricacies of how Germany versus France versus the UK and the Netherlands are so very different.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was a phenomenal, phenomenal time. I traveled the world. I went to lots and lots of different conferences and was able to build my network. ERC was very much a big part of me growing my network globally. And then after that COVID hit, I decided to go into consultancy. And that's when I was consulting with both in-house mobility, with their policies and vendor management and RFPs, etc. But then also doing work with a lot of tech companies in the relocation global mobility space and supporting them in terms of their outbound and sales
Mhm.
strategies, growth strategies, and partnerships as well. And then the final piece was the compliance. Very quickly, I was realizing compliance is the future. I think that's where the industry is going in terms of where the funding is being sent, and then decided I want to get the immigration under my belt. So I joined Newland Chase, and it was a brilliant training ground for global
Okay.
immigration. And
Mhm.
then yeah, and then I joined Localize, which is also in the immigration space, but more with a tech focused leaning.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, compliance is not my favorite cup of tea.
It's not many.
I usually like to focus a bit more on the care and career aspects of global mobility. I sometimes speak about the four C's. So the fourth one is cost.
Yes.
Um, but it's also the bread and butter. So of everything we do. Yeah. So
Yes.
just now we had a discussion about an immigration issue that I was not aware of. But things are happening in Switzerland that, even after like having been here forever and been in this market, some things happen that are not, I didn't know that they're happening. And
Mm,
they're barriers for expat partners, for example, to find a job. Now,
absolutely.
and that's why, or we recently had a visa rejection that
Yep.
made me again, go into the depths of a visa application process where I just felt like, okay, I think, it's not going to go away. We
No,
always need
no,
compliance and we will need to be excellent at compliance because without compliance, all of the other things won't be able to happen.
exactly.
And then I think it's also gonna, and maybe that's where localize comes in as well. It's gonna be even more relevant and challenging as we now, have this trend to hire more international people directly into companies rather than, even thinking about international assignments when we talk about global mobility. So we have more international transfers and more international hires, and I think this will be the trend in the future. And so we have HR professionals dealing with topics they don't understand fully. Yeah, not that they have no clue, but they don't understand them fully. A global mobility professional at least has more awareness,
Yeah.
like an in-house manager. They understand what is going on, why immigration is important, but a recruiter usually doesn't. So
Yeah. Yeah,
now
exactly.
that's why I think we must remember that compliance is the basis for everything that we do.
Yes. No, it comes up a lot, and none of the other stuff can happen if the compliance piece isn't done. And we've all been in that world where we're struggling to put together a business case for this service or that service. But as compliance becomes more and more complex in different jurisdictions, it's so intrinsically linked to geopolitics that you have no option but to have to abide by the rules and the regulations. And I think more and more now, global mobility teams are having to further skill up their already vast library of knowledge because you don't want to get caught short and make errors and have people, these drama scenes where you've had audits take place in offices, and half the population maybe shouldn't be working in that location,
Mhm.
or people in airports. We've heard stories of very senior people being questioned at airports saying, this business trip was a very long business trip. Tell me a little bit about the work you were doing on this business trip. And then it always falls back into the hands of the global mobility team. So it seems to be where the focus is going. And back to the business case, it seems to be where the C-suite really do take full opportunity to listen and learn, to get it right. The CEO is very interested in compliance. He's less interested in Angie that wants to go and spend a month in Malta in the summer break. But is it safe? Is it compliant? If we get audited, are we okay? So,
Mm.
what I thought was actually quite a dull topic very quickly has become really interesting to
Mm.
me.
Mhm. That's mm, how do I say that? It's something that I have been literally always pulled into
Yeah,
when I was working as a global mobility leader. Not because I wanted to, but because nobody else took care.
yeah,
So, especially business travelers was always like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was not considered a part of what a global mobility manager does. But if it wasn't done well or if it wasn't done at all, issues could come up,
yeah,
as you mentioned. Yeah. So while, with tax and social security, usually, you can solve things in hindsight with money, etc., paying a fine, for example, there's no joking about immigration.
yeah,
If you have someone in detention, someone being held at the border, you basically fail. so
yeah,
so
yeah. And
this is why, for me, this is also one of the only compliance topics that I have to say I was always very interested in. I always look
yeah,
at immigration. Yeah.
yeah. I've heard stories about CEOs having a 2-year ban on a country.
Oh, it could be up to five. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
you don't want to
It,
end up in prison in the
mm,
US, for
exactly.
example. Yeah.
Exactly. It really can be truly catastrophic. There are some aspects where there's leniency,
Mm.
but I think when I fully realized the impact it could have, that's when I thought this is very, very serious
Yeah. Yeah.
and something that maybe I have to learn more about and skill up on. And I do tend to spend a lot of time with global immigration professionals and learn about updates in different regions all the time. It's fascinating.
Mm.
Always political, unfortunately. It's
Yeah.
always political.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when you think about your journey, Nuran, and somebody a bit younger than you, like, sorry, I just dropped my pen. Let's say, that the version of you that just came out of university, or, the version of you that was in the Middle East, that kind of woman. What would you advise her today?
Oh, it's a tough one, but I think I would definitely say is to be your authentic self. I think when I was growing up during my time, and it was sometimes scary to be vulnerable and truly authentic. And being the third cultural kid I always felt that I had to conform or adhere to
Mm.
the culture or the country at the time. And I would definitely advise anyone is really be yourself, be your authentic self, because that alone will make you stand out. There's nobody else that is you that has had your experience and your background. And so don't be afraid to kind of share your experiences, your opinions, and how you feel about things. And the other thing would be open to everything and any opportunity. Say yes. Some of the best relationships I've developed have been from very random conversations,
Mm.
very random meetings in very random places. So be open, despite your very focused career path, you should still be open to magic that can happen when you're least expecting it.
I love that. Do you want to share some magic story? Something, you have in mind when you say that?
I think, when I traveled a lot with work, it was really about kind of networking with industry people.
Yeah.
But some of my best kind of memories and relationships of being in the US or in Germany, in France for kind of me was having conversations with random people in different in whether it's at a restaurant, having dinner with work colleagues and speaking to other people there. I've had some brilliant conversations with taxi drivers who've like really changed my view. on certain things. Generally being in a kind of sales focused role, I always kind of focus on speaking to in-house global mobility corporates and never really allow time to build relationships with partners or other vendors and suppliers in the space who've turned out to be some of my closest friends, and taught me things that maybe I wouldn't have learnt from the GM in-house corporate experience. So I think the idea is to have your brain be a sponge and just be open to as much as you can that's out there. And that's how you build your armor of knowledge, by being able to pick advice from different people from different walks of life.
I first want to ask you about networking and then the armor of knowledge, because I have two related questions for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite way to network?
I do a lot of networking. Anyone that knows me well knows that I go to a lot of events and conferences globally. Um, I think I think it really boils down to being open to speak to people in the room that you don't know. I think when people go networking, they tend to spend time with people that are familiar faces because they're kind of uncomfortable or nervous. But the way I do it now is I go in with an aim and a view to at least come back with like two new relationships that I'd picked up at
Mhm.
that event at the time. And also don't feel like you've got to talk about business or work. Very little
Yeah.
of my networking involves compliance or work talk. It's very much about your backgrounds, your experiences. Do you have a family, your holiday that you've just come back on or that you're planning? So really be open to being vulnerable and being yourself. And I learned very, very quickly that seemed to work. And whether I was at a conference in Boston or an event in Munich, it was the same. It was being open, being true to myself. And I think the best thing is just leaving, having found something in common
Mhm.
with somebody else. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There's always something that you can bond over.
Mhm.
Um, and that's special. And then the follow-up is really important to any to
Mhm.
bring it back to the serious work aspect. Like, don't forget
Mhm.
to do the follow-up because we all meet hundreds of people and then nothing happens after the event. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I do try to do a LinkedIn follow-up afterwards.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the key points of networking.
Mm.
I would,
And it's fun. It's good. It's good fun.
yeah, I would probably add one thing that, I've learned over the years, to think about your purpose, why
Yeah.
you do it. Yeah. And then if the purpose goes beyond yourself, and has, like, for example, a link to a deeper cause that is important to you, and
Yeah.
I know that it is the case for you because you're DEIB advocate, TCKs are important to you. Vulnerability is a topic that you find important, being authentic. I'm sure you have all these, the purpose already in the back of your mind, but you share from a bigger place than just making it about the next sale,
Yeah, it's a great
or
point.
about getting somewhere, getting something out of the other person. It's a different kind of attitude. It's more for coming from a giving attitude than from a matching or taking attitude.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's brilliant. And people see that as well. I
Yeah.
think if you have that more holistic view, the people around you will notice that. And that's how you make it long-term sustainable. You don't want to be the person in the room that gets avoided at
Yeah.
networking events because they were too salesy the
Oh
last time you
God.
spoke to
There
them.
she is again
Yeah.
with her sales pitch.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've definitely seen a lot of that where people so it's important people want to spend time with you. And that was kind of one of my when I have face-to-face client meetings, like my rule that I have for a face-to-face client meeting is make sure the client wants to see you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the meeting ends with, let's do this again sometime, let's catch up, let's put something in the calendar for next month, then that's a positive sign.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good. I love that, Nouran. Um, And the armor of knowledge. Now we're going to come to the educational piece. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that too. And you're probably aware that I'm teaching in the Global Mobility Master course at the Erasmus University. And, I'm using this format, the podcast, also as a sounding board for getting ideas, but also, to look into maybe things that, we haven't really thought about, or, to come up with themes, because, sometimes, you know, global mobility managers might think they know everything already. But increasingly, I think the target group for these kind of courses will not be global mobility managers. It will be recruiters, HR
Yeah,
professionals, tax professionals, maybe even CEOs of smaller companies, like you just mentioned.
yeah,
Because global mobility is now a lifestyle.
yeah.
It's like everybody is sort of a bit into global mobility.
It's
So,
so true.
we need to go with the time, and,
Yeah.
our offering needs maybe to be a little less technical, a little bit, maybe a little bit more superficial. But then, people need to know, okay, this should be a red flag. Like, be careful. This is not a business trip. Yeah. Call Nouran. You stay somewhere for 4 weeks and you take a laptop. It's probably not a business trip unless you're rich. So, so what do you think, we should include in this technical courses a bit more? Or what do you think, uh, if you think about a target group like HR business partners, recruiters, maybe you come across things that they don't understand, or, they don't want to see from our side. What do you think we should teach them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like GM is becoming increasingly complex. I like your point about it being a lifestyle. I think even the factors that sit within GM is expanding. Workations. I met with a corporate the other day. All of remote work has fallen into her bucket, into her to-do list. Compliance is falling in, even though there are corporate tax and immigration providers. It's really broadening to be so much more than a single discipline or a single resource. And the knowledge is kind of ever expanding. If anything, I think GM, we always need to keep skilling up. The skilling up should never stop. We need to be constant sponges for learning. And kind of similar to you in terms of gaining knowledge, there's some groups I'm in called Women of Global Mobility, where we get together and we talk about challenges and frustrations. And actually, during our last conversation, we spoke about kind of what are the urgent needs now. And this is a group of kind of fairly senior GM professionals all across Europe.
Mhm.
And one of the things that kept coming up was actually being able to navigate, educate, and influence other stakeholders, closer stakeholders within your organization. So you mentioned HR
Mhm.
and talent.
Mhm.
They seem to be the two other kind of disciplines that sit very closely within the GM specific framework,
Mhm.
where there has been maybe some push and pull and challenges going on. And that's very, very understandable. HR have a very different vision and mission and their own to-do list and deadlines, as do talent. But I think more and more now, as we evolve this team in this department, the only way this is going to work and be sustainable and compliant, of course, is to get kind of full understanding and buy-in from your talent teams and your GM teams. You know, I think I'm hearing a lot about talent teams are just kind of hiring what they think is the best person for the job to relocate to Saudi Arabia for this role. But the intricacies about getting work permits for Saudi Arabia, if anyone has seen that, can be fairly complex. And there's certain parts of the criteria which make it even more complex. And talent aren't aware of that. They just know that they need to get this body into this role.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it comes up a lot, and it's something I'm working on in terms of some kind of a wider webinar and learning with this group is to how to get we collectively solve the challenges of being able to work more closely with these teams, build relationships, but really get them on board to fully understand the technical challenges that sit within GM so that when decisions are made or processes are created, it's
Mhm.
a more of a holistic view that's going on than just the challenge of the day that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
dealing with.
yeah,
So I think being able to skill them around sometimes it's building a business case, sometimes it's just building better relationships with these different teams. But I think we need tools and strategies to really reach out to HR and talent to kind of build a system that works. And that can be educational sessions where they all get together and speak and do brainstorming. Other times it can be like, this is a process of what it needs to look like. And other times this is a very factual, serious business case that I need to provide to get this type of budget. But I think that's something to be aware of. And the other piece that came up was and annoyingly, it falls back to compliance. But the GM people were telling me they're getting increasingly frustrated because they're expected to have tax knowledge and immigration knowledge on top of their day jobs. And we're actually seeing more and more some GM roles being advertised by recruiters saying must have tax background or must have immigration background, which is like a whole different ball game. So how do we navigate that? How do we defend ourselves that, why do we have to be experts in every single topic that relates to global mobility when you're a single
yeah.
person? And I think that's a wider conversation as well.
Which, is also a reason why the master course was set up in the first place,
Yeah.
because it is so hard. It is rocket science to
Yeah, I agree.
even keep like, an overview of the basic areas. But then, you do this for like 190 country combinations.
Yeah.
So, you cannot have the knowledge of all these countries, obviously, but you need to know how to approach the topic, how to approach the question. And then, once you are viewing the issues, once you see the issues, to then align a solution. Because that's another thing, that I think sometimes people don't understand. When we talk about tax, social security, and immigration, and HR, we have to do with 4 to 5 different legal areas,
Yeah.
and they have conflicting
Yeah.
definitions.
Yes.
An
Yeah.
assignment in social security law is not the same as an assignment in tax law and immigration law. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm preaching
It's
to the choir, but I just want to say this once.
Yeah, no, it's overwhelming. It's really, really overwhelming. And I think the role and the discipline needs to be kind of re-looked at.
Yeah,
But for the time being is you need to pull in your stakeholders as closely as possible because it's so challenging and you can't do this on your own.
yeah,
Talent, C-suite, and HR need to understand the complications that you're going through.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm also a fan of having global mobility closer to the business.
Yes, yeah.
But well, we can't go into that now. We maybe have to set up another Red Couch talk to discuss this question. Um, I mean, I have to say, Nouran, that was really amazing. And I wanted to understand what's coming up for you. What are your, like, I just mentioned to one of my clients, now we're going to be back in event season because we had
Yeah,
like a little bit of a summer slump.
yeah.
I'm sure it's the same in the UK, but we're going back to school now and back to work and back to events. So, what is coming up for you? What are you organizing? What's on your agenda?
Yeah, it's my favorite time. I'm sad. The summer seems to be flying by. But I do love event season. Yeah, and I would say I'm constantly organizing, planning content and speakers around webinars and in-person events. There's a couple of in-person events I'm organizing for the autumn season as well, and then probably a series of webinars around that. Lots of different topics, covering all aspects around GM, but the well-being aspect too, I think is important. So anyone that's listening or watching this, get it if you want to get involved, let me know, get in touch with me because I'm always looking for exciting, insightful people that I can bring along on these journeys that can share a voice that's not the usual voice that we're always hearing. And I think Angie, you might be one of the perfect ones. So I
Yeah,
will be harassing you
yeah,
for
please do.
a webinar soon.
Please do. And if anyone wants to contact you, we will put your LinkedIn profile into the show notes. They should refer to the Red Couch Talks, so we know you're not a spammer, but somebody serious about global mobility and being a global rock star. And I just wanted to ask, are you by any chance coming to the HR Tech event in Leipzig, Germany in November? Because I will be there.
Uh,
A
I've
perfect
heard,
opportunity to meet.
yeah, oh, that would be wonderful. I have heard lots about it. And I will check. I
Yeah.
will check if I can get there. It would be, yeah, it would be fabulous to meet in person and
Yeah.
do that
Yeah. I don't
that
know,
thing.
maybe it's interesting for localize as well, to think about it. So I hope we're gonna meet in person very soon because I have a feeling we're gonna get along really well
Yes, definitely, definitely. It's my favorite part of these things.
and share some more war stories and
Yeah.
think a bit more strategically about the next Red Couch talk or, you know, maybe another conversation to set up.
Yeah, no, that would be fabulous. And thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed this discussion.
Very good. It was great to have you, Nuran. You rock.
Thank you so much, Angie. You're the best.